Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of Bluegrass. You've enjoyed live Bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite Bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So I want to welcome Jesse Brock to Got Grass. Nice to see you, Jesse.
Good to see you, sir.
I want to congratulate you, first of all, on your recent IBMA award. It's not the first one you've gotten. How did this one feel?
It felt as good as the previous two. So that feeling never goes away. It's kind of a euphoric feeling.
I guess it's always a surprise because there's always great players and you just never know, right?
Yeah, just to be in the finals is an honor, and it's full of great talent, wonderful friends who I would wish any of them to receive the award. I think it's a mutual feeling amongst the group, and I'm just extremely honored and humbled.
Your band did very well.
They did. Very proud. Glad to be a part of it, to be on the train and ride it with them. And they're all excited too. I think we're all still on cloud nine about it all, and just very appreciative.
I usually start these interviews with a non-music question. So if you had a day off with nothing to do, no mandolin around, what would you be doing?
I'd be laying in my easy chair watching TV, catching up on the news, and because we're so darn busy, I miss out on weeks of current events, and sometimes I just miss out. So one of those days was yesterday, recovering from a headache or a migraine, whatever it was. But it felt very relaxed and be a slug.
It's important to have those days.
Yeah, I haven't had it in months.
I think everybody knows who you are at this point, Jesse Brock, but could you give us a short bio just to introduce yourself to maybe some people who have been living up in a cabin in the woods and never heard of you?
That's sure. Well, I'm a mandolinist and vocalist with Authentic Unlimited. The band has been in existence for almost 3 years. We're working on our 5th album, which will be a Christmas album coming up, probably coming out within the next couple weeks. And we actually have a 6th album finished in the vault, but our process has come up several levels since we started, and we may even re-record that album. But so far we have 5 albums to our name. I'm celebrating my 43rd year in the music industry, and I don't count the years. I started when I was 7 as a singer, and that helped my ear training, and started on fiddle when I was 8.5, and went to mandolin when I was 9, and it's been with me ever since.
Were you in a family band as a kid at that age?
I was. We were on the road for about 6 years. My 2 sisters and my father. My father started the band in the late 70s, and my sisters were already singing and being trained by my father. And then I was around it my whole life, so that kind of helped my ear training to hear parts and find the parts within what my sisters were doing. My dad just wanted to focus on playing the banjo and being a driving force instrumentally. And so I guess it was my job as a third part to find the parts and or be a lead singer. So that's what I did.
Was this in Tennessee where you grew up? Did you grow up in Tennessee or?
No, I grew up in Illinois.
Oh, you did?
I was born in Decatur, Illinois, and back in 1972. So that shows my age. And so I've been playing almost my whole life. I talked to the McLeans about it last week, and they said they can't remember a time when they didn't perform, and they said it's the same with you. And I said, yeah, I guess it is. I do remember when I couldn't play.
Wow, I can't believe you've been in music that long. You just don't seem that old to me.
Good living.
Yeah. So in your time playing as a kid with a family and stuff, you obviously were listening to music too. Did you ever listen to a certain artist or piece of music and say, "Wow, that's really inspiring. That's how I want to sound like. That's what I want to be."
Yeah, I always wanted to be Doyle Lawson, ironically, and never thought I would ever be close to doing what he accomplished. Never, and to this day, I don't I don't foresee myself as taking the place of Doyle Lawson. Nobody can take his place. I'm just very humbled that he believed in me enough to suggest my name to the boys when they wanted to start their band, and so I always wanted to be Doyle Lawson. Hearing his music back with the Country Gentlemen, um, all the way up to his own band, and I went to his School of Music concert in Nashville. I think it was the 50th anniversary of him being in the business. Uh, that's on DVD. You can see that. And there's just really uh, no words that can express my gratitude to Doyle Lawson and what he's done for the music business. Um, Not only his band, but the volumes of Bluegrass album band music, which is pretty much a college, if you will, uh, for the youngsters today, or anybody for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of talking with Doyle on this podcast, as well as some other mandolinists with different approaches. John Reichman, Mike Compton, Tim O'Brien. So it's fun to hear musicians who play the same instrument have totally different takes on how to play it, how they learned it, how they approach it. Can we talk a little bit about your approach to the mandolin and so
Sure.
forth? Yeah. Um, so what mandolin are you playing these days? Is it the one you've had for a long time, or you switch around, or?
Mainly have been playing a 1924 uh, Gibson Lloyd Lower. Acquired it almost 4 years ago, and it's serial number 75697 for all the lower geeks out there. It's from the February 18, 1924 batch. It has its original Verzi in it, and I've had Don McRosty do most of the work. Also had Lynn Dudenbossel do some work on it, and to get it up to where I prefer for stage and studio. Uh, so that's been my main mandolin for the last 2 years. There are venues that I don't want to play it, like in the direct sunlight. Uh, I have other mandolins. Don McRosty made a really nice replica 1923 voicing that I play, that I purchased back in 2019. And most recently got a rose mandolin made for me, and having work done to that to make it playable for stage and studio also.
Oh. So what does the old lore? I mean, obviously that's a fabled name in mandolin playing, and everybody probably would like to have one. And you say you acquired it, so I assume you had to buy it, and probably wasn't cheap, right?
It was not cheap. Of course, the market has come down considerably as of the last 10 years. They are no longer in the $200,000 plus mark. And there's no way that I could pay that kind of money these days, even. But the opportunity came about. Unfortunately, the owner passed away, and I was given a call from David McLaughlin, and he said, "If you can acquire the funds for this mandolin, I suggest you do all you can to acquire this mandolin." He said, I've already picked it up. I've taken it home. So I had to travel 10 hours to go play it. And as he would say, get intimate with it. And so I was with it for 4 days while the funds were being transferred through. It was a pretty easy discussion I had with my wife. We had to move some things around in the portfolio to make it happen. But once I started playing the mandolin, it was a no-brainer. Never thought I'd ever be an owner of a lower, so I put it out of my mind. But I am a proud owner of it. I'm just a caretaker of it until the next person.
Yeah. So what is it for you about the lore that is so special in terms of its sound and playability? What makes it the lore?
Well, Lloyd Lohr really knew what he was doing as an acoustic engineer. He put a lot of time and effort into creating what we know, which is the standard, the Stradivarius of mandolins, and it's it's a very unique sound. Modern mandolins tend to have an open, Gordy sound. They're going for volume and power, that punch that comes out of the sound holes, the F holes. And Lloyd Lohr uh, created an instrument that would blend with a symphony. And sometimes people don't like that. They want the punchy, loud sound. But this instrument records beautifully, or on stage. For those who have seen our shows in the last 2 years, when I've used it, they can hear that clarity. It has plenty of punch. It's grown even since I've owned it. Just from playing it, has really opened up. Some Lloyd Lohr's have been kind of tight sounding, but I've talked to several luthiers, and they said it's mainly due to the setup. I guarantee you, they all of them are good. They just need love and care, and so I've tried to give it as much love and care as I could and can. And gonna I've recorded all of our albums on the Lohr. I've used other ones. I've used the Red Diamond that I just mentioned a while ago, the 23 voicing, and I've used a McClanahan. But mainly it's the two, the Lohr and the Red Diamond that I record with. But that's probably the difference in an old Lohr and a new mandolin.
That lore been sitting around not being played for a while when you got it, so you had to really like get it back into its playing shape.
Yeah, I don't think it had been played in 10 years. It belonged to an engineer in Little Rock, Arkansas. And several people have known about it. When people found out about his death, they just started uh, investigating and trying to find out how they could acquire the mandolin. Um, I think David McLaughlin said that Herschel Sizemore even called him on the way through Roanoke, and David had already gotten home up to Virginia. But he said, "Yeah, I could probably flip that mandolin and make a pretty good profit." And David said, "Well, that's why I didn't call you."
Yeah, good. I mean, these instruments, these classic instruments, it's a shame for people to see them really as investments. I mean, I know they have been in the past, but they really need to be out there being played. Would you agree with that, right?
Yeah, surprisingly enough, the mandolin had been at George Gruden's guitars for over a couple years. And I think I actually played it. I went up to his office, and he had about 5 or 6 Lloyd Lohr's there. And I believe this was one of them. But, I was just playing them. I didn't ever expect to be an owner, especially this one. It's got some provenance to it. Um, it belonged to a mandolin star back in the 20s. He had a career from the 20s to 50s, and his name was Walter K. Bauer. You can research his name and the mandolin on the internet. And so he wrote a lot of musical books, He was a Gibson instrument endorser, multi-instrumentalist. He was a close friend to Lloyd Loar himself. And the story is Lloyd Loar let him go to the factory and pick this mandolin out. And it's a special mandolin. It has all gold appointments. I have all the original parts to it. I'm still using the original tuners, but everything else I've replaced to preserve the original pieces, and had Don McRosty make the replacement parts.
Gotcha. So I've noticed when you're on stage with a band, you have a certain position you usually like to be in. If I'm facing the stage, you're kind of to the left a little bit near the bass player. I remember you playing with Michael Cleveland, and you were. So is there a reason why you like to be right there all the time, or is that just the way it works out?
That's just the way it works out. Of course, Michael, when I was in his band, only had one working ear, and so he didn't even want to have in-ear monitors, while the rest of us did. He had a wedge in front of him, so it wouldn't affect his pitch, and he had to listen and have his ear open to hear the pitch, and have that wedge on pretty loud. I mean, we could hear his own wedge even with our in-ears on. But it's just amazing what an overachiever Michael Cleveland is to this day. Very proud of him, proud to have been in his band. And there's just not enough I can say about Michael as a musician and friend.
Yeah. He also was on the podcast a while back, and we were talking about playing fiddle, and he was saying, I still struggle with getting double stops in tune and this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, it was hard to believe that somebody as good as him could still feel like I'm not in tune when I'm playing, sliding up to these double stops and stuff. It's just amazing.
I imagine playing at that level, on a fretless instrument. As I said, I started out on fiddle, and that's why I gave it up, because it requires a lot of energy, a lot of time, patience, and I didn't seem to have the patience enough to stick with it. I wasn't doing too bad. I probably could have been a decent fiddle player later on in life if I'd stuck with it, but the needs were to have a mandolin player in the family band, so that's what I focused on. And that's just how life happened for me. Maybe one of these days I'll use the opportunity to focus on the fiddle. I just had a couple fiddles fixed up from Jason Berry, and it's always like a project in the back of my mind is to address the fiddle again, and it would work well to do some twin fiddling in the band if that ever happened. But it's a winter project for me that never seems to happen.
So you never just go by and see the fiddle and just pick it up and just play a little, or once in a while you don't do that.
Well, been so busy. I'm hoping that when things slow down, if they will, that I can do that. It's going to take a lot of time and effort, though. So I understand where he's coming from. It's a daily fight, I'm sure, to play in tune on a fretless instrument. It's a very demanding instrument, much like the dobro is, I think.
I think the first time I ever saw you perform was with Michael Cleveland. He had a very good band. He had Jesse Baker, and I think Daryl Webb was singing lead, and I forget, maybe I don't know who was on. Tom Adams maybe on bass or somebody, but
Marshall Wilburn was on bass.
Oh, Marshall Wilburn, that's right. Yeah, okay. And of course, Michael likes to play those tunes fast.
Yeah.
And I remember being blown away by the speed the band played a lot. I mean, somebody recorded the whole concert that I was at, and like 80% of the songs were just at like breakneck speed. Did you enjoy playing like that, or was that like, would you ever want to say, can we just slow down a little bit, or did you like that challenge?
I think we were all on the same page, with the exception of one day when I had a migraine, and I told Michael, there's nothing to prove. I can laugh about it today, but I said there was nothing to prove today. If you could kind of lighten up on me, and that just made it worse. He just poured it on, and we all laughed about it. But I got over my migraine, and we really enjoy. I think to this day putting the drive in the music that we do, and I think it all derives from loving Jimmy Martin music. And we played a lot with Audie Blaylock, and he was of that vein as well. And anybody who really likes hard drive and bluegrass music usually is on the same page with us on that.
I one of the songs I really enjoyed hearing you do was that you did a duet with Michael on Jerusalem Ridge. I guess it was one of your kind of showstoppers that you used to do, and that that was really always a highlight to hear you and Michael play that song. It's a beautiful song. It's a little bit complicated. It's got a lot of different parts to it, and when you play it fast, it's just remarkable.
Well, thank you.
Remarkable tune. Yeah.
Yeah, it just came about almost by accident. I had planned on recording it for my next solo project, and we were in the studio recording the next Michael Cleveland Flamekeeper album, and he alerted me that he was contacted by Rounder Records that we didn't have enough material to make up the space, I guess, the time allotted for the CD. And Michael suggested that we go in and just do like a duet version of it. And I said, well, I'd be willing to do that. I make a little sacrifice for the greater good. And it was a greater good. It turned out to be instrumental of the year. And I even heard that Kyle Cantrell said it was one of his most requested tunes on his program. And very honored to have recorded that and made a mark with Michael on that.
Yeah. In playing with a duo, are there particular challenges? I mean, I guess there would be compared to playing with a band because there's just two of you, right? It's a different mindset.
Yeah, I guess so. We just went in and did it live. What you hear is pretty much one take. I don't think there were any overdubs. And we did that at Hilltop Recording Studio in Nashville. And we had to go upstairs to a smaller room and record that. And it just happened within an hour. So, sometimes in life, those things happen. And whether they're by accident or divine intervention, it's you just accept it and run with it. And if it's successful, then you give all praise to God and for those who believe, which I do, and a very proud Christian, and thankful for everything He's given me.
Do you ever get to do duo performances now? I know you're pretty busy with your band, so I wouldn't imagine you have much time for side projects now.
Not really. Yeah,
No, no.
I've even had people ask if I teach, and I have taught. I've done music camps also, but we've been so busy that I really don't have the time to do that, or made time. Between three different estates I have to go back and forth to, that pretty much takes up a lot of my time.
I started teaching a bluegrass couple of classes locally. I'm not a mandolin player, but I was wondering, for beginner, intermediate mandolin players learning bluegrass, what would be an important tip that you would give them, just like to kind of get them on the right path of bluegrass mandolin? I know there's a lot, it encompasses a whole lot, soloing, chop, and all this
Mhm.
kind of stuff. But is there anything you would say to a learning mandolin bluegrass player, like this is what you should really focus on?
Sure. The main job of the mandolin in a band is to be percussive and be a supportive instrument rhythmically, much like a guitar. If that falls out, you can really hear and feel the difference in the power of a band. So learn your rhythm, your chops, what we call in the bluegrass field chops, um, and your chords. You gotta know your chords and how to keep good timing. If you're practicing with a metronome, which all of us do, you're never above it. You're never too good to do that. That's a good starting point, and that's where I started out. I started with two fingers, just doing the open G, and then progressed to three. And within a year, I was using all four fingers. And I have small hands, but after a while, it just becomes muscle memory, and they just go right to it. And then I got to a new plateau, learning bar chords, much like a jazz guitarist would. And I thought that would really open up uh, my abilities if I learned the fingerboard a little bit more. And I get tired of the same progressions, so I wanted to open up my mind to that aspect, and it really helped learn the instrument.
Do you like to play different voicings of the chords up and down the neck, not just the standard four finger G and blah blah blah?
Yeah, you can play G in many ways.
Yeah.
Once I learned how to do that, it really opens up, because staying in the same realm all the time doesn't really give the energy I feel that a song requires, and every song is different.
So when you're playing the chop, rhythmic chop, is it okay to just dampen all four strings just for the chop sound, or is it important to play the full chord and dampen that, or is it vary depending on the song and the instance?
Well, just like you said, to play the full chord and then cut it off is pretty much the percussive chop that we've grown accustomed to. I think Doyle Lawson did it the best, and he and I are of the same mindset that you need to hear the chord and not be afraid of the tone of the instrument. Um, and I think if you hear the chord and then you cut it off, there's a certain amount of percussive energy that you have to have when you're playing the chord. You got to present it and then cut it off. So that's the only way I know how to express it or explain it. Uh, there, even Sam Bush, people think that it's just a cut off chop, but it's not. You're hearing his initial chord, and then he brings it back like a drummer would. So it's very quick. It's like like that. I don't know if you hear that in my voice, but that's
No,
that's
I
what.
do. I do. I've never heard it explained that way. And I know some mandolinists today, some of the younger ones occasionally or often just chop just for the sound of but no, there's no chord ring at all. But
Right.
what you're saying is just that suggestion of the chord and then it dampens,
Yeah.
adds a lot more something, balls to the chop, I guess you would say.
Sure. And there are times when I want it to ring out. I there's a certain amount of it's not just one style of chop. It's like sometimes you got to really let the audience hear that chord, and so there are times when the decay is longer or shorter, depending on the song. Um, Sometimes a slow song you even need a longer decay, and as time progresses, you'll learn what you like to hear or what someone else around you wants to hear. Some of your bandmates, you may ask them, well, "What do you think about this? How's this sound?" And that's just a part of growing in any realm. But I don't know if I'm just rambling, but I think that addresses.
No, no, you're not rambling. This is good stuff. I've noticed you play a lot, almost kind of like a strumming chop. It's not just boom, it's it's like a almost like a banjo roll, kind of driving kind of rhythm.
Well,
Um,
I think from the school of Jimmy Martin, which Doyle Lawson was a part of, uh, we all after listening for many decades, know what it should sound like, and when it isn't right, we definitely know that too. And I think Doyle really perfected it. And what it is just being supportive and playing what's appropriate to what's around you. And I'm a Tony Rice fan too, so I hear a lot of Tony Rice even in the mandolin. Of course, his brother Larry Rice played mandolin, and you can hear some of that in his playing too, whether it was as they were growing up playing with their father or with each other. But just not only is the mandolin the part of the drum set of the band, but there are many faces to and voices to the mandolin within a band. When it's not a rhythmic instrument, it's a solo instrument. And you listen to any great soloist, they have a great right hand and they know how to work around the instrument and make it blend with either a vocalist or instrumentally. And, I love Tony Rice's guitar playing, and I love Jerry Douglas's dobro playing. I love Stuart Duncan's fiddle playing, and they all know how to make it supportive and appropriate to what's around them. And that's all I try to do. If you hear it like a guitar, then that's what I'm hearing in my mind, or what I think is appropriate at the time.
So this might be a tough question, but when you're in a band, you're playing a song, and it's your time for a mandolin solo.
Mhm.
What are you thinking about something? Are you just playing instinctively? Are you reacting to the song, the musician before you? I imagine it's a complicated thing, and part of it's just subconscious, right? You just
Some
play.
pilot, a lot of it is just melody, and
Mm,
initially that's my go-to is play the melody. Um, if I'm hearing something energetic on stage or in the studio, I might be trying to follow up with something that matches it or keeps that energy up. Um, Sometimes I get frustrated even, and what I play is a matter of frustration. um,
yeah.
but I think that's kind of cool. Is not boxing yourself into playing scales or what's expected. If people start expecting what you're going to play, uh, it's time to grow, I think, and give them something that they're not expecting, which is what I try to do. I think a lot of people expect me to play melody and something simple. Um, I try to branch out and just play what's appropriate and what I like.
Oh. Would you say your approach to mandolin has changed over the years in terms of how you approach a solo, for example? Are you a little more relaxed, or I mean, like you say, you would say to Michael, "Well, we have nothing to prove." Well, you have nothing to prove on mandolin, so you can kind of play what you want. So has that changed over the years? How you play? Would
I,
you say?
there has been an ebb and flow to my confidence. Um, I I think ignorance is bliss, as they say. And when I was young, being on stage right next to Tony Rice did not affect me. If I did it today or when he was with us, uh, it would have a different effect. And you know, I I think the first time I won the Mandolin Player of the Year award, a lot of people, or in my mind, expected a lot out of me, and I was one of them. I expected to try to be uh, the best I could be. That's all I can be, of course. But I think a lot of people uh, thought there were better choices out there, and it really affected me. I think went through a slight depression about it. But then you know, I grow as a human, as anybody does, and realize that I can only do what I can do, and with the gifts God has given me to the best of my abilities. And the only time that I should feel not worthy is if I'm not putting effort into it. And so I've just learned to put as much effort as I can into it, 110%, just like on stage, and just be me, not try to prove anything.
Just going to ask you, often ask people on this podcast, were you ever discouraged by either events in your life or music that maybe thought you might even stop playing bluegrass professionally? I mean, did you ever get to a point where this is not really, I'm not happy about
Sure.
it?
It's happened 2 or 3 times in my career. When the family band quit in 1988, I put it in the closet for about 6 months, didn't touch it. Started hearing acoustic country on the radio, and that kind of energized me a bit. So I got it back out, and that latent learning, by putting it away, when I got it out, I was doing things I'd never done before, maybe from hearing it on the radio or whatever. But I'd get my mandolin out and play to the radio. And that's about when Ricky Skaggs and Vince Gill were out there doing their acoustic country sound, which we all really enjoyed and do to this day. So that was the first time. The second time probably was when I lost my job with Michael Cleveland, Flamekeeper. I had moved up to Maine and was married. That was my first marriage up there. Went through a depression then, and felt like I was in my own little world up there, away from the music scene. And the third time was probably when I left the Gibson Brothers, and I had kind of a lull in my career there as well. I went through several bands. I tried my own band, did another solo project, and but this band, Authentic Unlimited, has really brought me out of that, and so grateful for it.
We had a concert for Tony Rice back in 2014, at which you performed with a great band of people: Josh Williams and Rob Ikes and Chris Eldridge, Mike Barnett. I think Tony Trischka was there. I remember we had to go to the thrift store and get you a sports coat because you didn't have one with you. And I remember we went to buy like a tweedy looking sports coat, which you wore. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
So I know, like me, I mean, Tony Rice was my hero too, and I was lucky enough that he played here 4 times, and I got a few chats with him. But so you did play with him. I know you obviously admired him, but did you perform with him at different times in your career?
Never in his band, but we were on the same billing with my family band, and we played at Mechanics Hall in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1986. And it was the C.W. Brock family, the Peter Rowan trio, which had Jerry Douglas and Mark O'Connor, and then the Tony Rice unit. And then at the end of like 6 hours of music, we had a finale, and we all got on stage, and I stood right next to Tony. And I've got a picture of it somewhere. But that was really cool. And then we played this consecutive year, 1987. It was the C.W. Brock family, Seldom Seen, and Tony Rice unit. It was great. Good time.
Yeah. I noticed in your band now you're a singer your whole life. You're a great singer, great harmony singer.
Thank you.
You're in a band now that has also other good singers.
Right.
So are you, would you consider yourself the primary harmony singer in the band, or one of? I mean, I've never seen the band live. I've seen a lot of videos, and you've got a very strong vocal
Thank you.
presence up there. The band is like killer vocals.
Thank you.
Are you happy with your vocal role in the band as it sits?
No,
No.
because I was thrown the scraps, which is bass vocal, and I've done bass vocal in the past with the Dale and Bradley band, and but that's just kind of dabbling and for the need of the album. And when this band came about, they already had their core trio, and they said what we need is a bass vocal. So I had to retrain myself how to get that depth out of the chest, and it's not always there. It's mostly there in the morning or when I'm sick.
When you first get up, your voice is way down there,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah. And but it's on the albums, and I I mainly shine when I do baritone vocals. Uh, I don't consider myself a lead vocalist, but I'm also doing some tenor in the band with John Metter, and that's to give Jerry Cole a break. They all have great ranges in their voices, but they want me to sing more tenor. So it's whatever the band requires. I'll do whatever they want to.
Right. I mean, when I think of your voice, I think of you as singing a harmony above the melody, whether it be a third or fifth above. I mean, tenor, high baritone, whatever you want to call it. I know there's all these terms about it, but I think of you as singing up there, not down there.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
it's been a learning curve for me to to do the bass. But it's whatever they need, whatever the song requires.
hmm.
They're wanting me to venture out and do some more um, aside from bass vocal, like in the high tenor or high baritone range.
Right, right. So you mentioned the Gibsons. Was that a how shall I put this? Was that a mutual agreeable parting, or was it were you not didn't want to leave the band, or you don't have to? I'm not trying to pry. I'm just curious.
Well, no one wants to lose the job. Um, of course, history shows that they were going into a different direction, not necessarily giving up on the bluegrass crowd, but they wanted to do an electric album that did not involve me. Uh, and so I tried offering my services uh, on an electric instrument, but there wasn't really a need for that. And the schedule showed that they were going to be doing more dates to support that album, which I understood. And we even had a meeting that I was probably going to have to supplement my scheduling with other things. So we were in agreement with that. Unfortunately, it happened the way it did. And I left the band um, so that I could try to have a full schedule, if you will.
So is that when you started your band, which was Streamliner? Was that at that point in your career you eventually decided to start your own band?
Well, yes and no.
Um,
I've been doing some annual gigs up in New England with a band called Mainline Express, which I was a founder of, one of the founders, and so we did that for probably 20 years. We'd go up and do 3 gigs on a weekend and go back home. And we tried discussing doing something with that. And the last tour I did, I said, we're going to have to make an album so that we have something to sell when we do these venues. And I'd already tried starting something that was either with that name, Mainline Express, or the Jesse Brock Band, or Jesse Brock and Mainline Express. Um, they pushed back on that idea several years prior to 2018, or yeah, 2018. But when I left the Gibson Brothers, I said I want to do this either with my name on it or together as a partnership. And so we tried going in the studio and doing a Mainline Express album, and there were 4 different opinions on how the business was to be run, which didn't work, of course. I said, well, I'm going to try to do my own album, which is what I wanted to do anyway. So that's when Jesse Brock and Streamliner came about. I wrote the title track, Streamliner, so I would have something to work with there. And then that didn't go very far. The musicians on the album had their own schedules, and it just didn't work. So then I did a tour with Jeff Scroggins in Colorado, just to find out that he wanted to retire. And so the timeline took me from that to Fast Track. And I was with Fast Track for 2 years, did 2 albums, started working on another album when Authentic Unlimited called me.
Oh, that call really was a major positive change for you, right? I mean, this basically the Doyle Lawson band without Doyle, and they wanted you to play, and they've been so successful. And I mean, obviously you want to sing more, I can tell that, but
I'm fine doing whatever.
yeah,
like in a supportive instrument up there, but I know everyone expects this band to produce vocals, and that's what they're known for. And the instrumentation is kind of secondary.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Well, I mean, Doyle, he was all about the singing and the harmonies. I always hear this story. I don't know if it's true that he would teach his band. He'd say, we're going to start with a 4-part harmony. We're in my house. We'll sing the harmony. Now you all walk around the house and you come back and make sure you're still singing the same thing as when you left. And I guess he was pretty hard taskmaster when it came to harmonies, getting them right, because that was the sound that people expected. The perfect harmony sound. I mean, it's so beautiful when it works. It's amazing.
Well, surprisingly enough, there are a lot of great singers out there that do not have a pitch reference. And that's to kind of train to have a good pitch reference, to where when you come back to the circle or to that room, that you're still in the same pitch. A lot of the a cappella music requires that. Sometimes you don't hear it on the album, but somebody will be plucking a string even to give you a reference or a tuning fork. But you have 4 or 5 guys have to have that pitched reference along with great singing. So there are many aspects to it.
Oh. I've noticed in teaching these classes I'm doing that harmony is a very mysterious thing. Some people can just pick it up instantly and they can sing a beautiful harmony to a melody without even thinking about it. Other people, as soon as you start singing the melody, they go right to the melody with you. It's like they have a hard time hearing their part and singing it without, and still hear you, but keeping them separate. It's interesting. Some can do it and some just have a difficulty.
Well, that's true. There's also the aspect of an arrangement. And even though I've grown up from the age of 7 singing and learning parts, if I don't know the arrangement, I could step on another part by accident. But if I know the arrangement and I can see it on paper, even it's like reading sheet music. If you know 2 or 3 guys are going to go up in a certain range, then you have to know to go up to that range or go below it, and you work that out. A lot of the times with these albums, 3 of the boys will be working together on the arrangement vocally, while the rest of us are at home rehearsing our instrument parts. So that has to be in place before you go into the studio, preferably. And the producer or engineer will prefer that you do that too.
Right. Is there anybody in music today that you'd love to perform with but haven't had a chance to perform with? Anyone that you strikes your ear or that you know about or that you know that you would love to play with but might someday?
Uh, Probably the most current name would be Billy Strings. Been
Mhm.
a lot about Billy and his success and seeing it, seeing the crowds he's performing to. Um, I like Molly Tuttle's music. There are a lot of musicians out there. Some I've already played with, but some I have yet to play with. We just performed with Jerry Douglas on the awards show, and that was a highlight. Even though he was present at the, prior to talking about 1986 and '7 at Mechanics Hall, never really got a chance to be on stage with him and perform a song like that. But I think the list is ever growing of people, as they come onto the scene.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the success of Molly Tuttle and Billy Strings, hopefully is bringing the whole bluegrass world up with him because I mean, like Billy Strings is, he's like a rock star right now. Everyone wants to play with him, Willie Nelson and, anybody. But hopefully that's kind of increasing the visibility of bluegrass to everybody. Do you get that sense that bluegrass is on an upswing now?
I certainly hope so. I
Hmm.
also hope that people aren't getting away from the traditional values of it, which is pretty much where I'm at. Uh, Everything has to grow and go in a positive direction. I just hope it stays positive and people don't try to change it. Of course, there are the inner politics uh, in any organization that happens, and it's hard to rein it in and have everybody on the same page. But I think all we can do is go out there and do our best, uh, produce good music the way we hear it or the way we want people to hear it, and always be open to collaborations. And the latest collaboration with Bob Minner, who co-wrote the song "Fall in Tennessee," that also has Jerry Douglas on it. That was a wonderful collaboration that uh, wasn't necessarily made to pay off, but it did in the long run. We're open to other collaborations in the near future.
Um, it's funny because rap music or whatever you want to call it, hip hop or rap, I mean, collaborations are everywhere. I mean, every record is one or two people getting together. And I mean, bluegrass does it to an extent, but bluegrass seems to be you're with your band, you're mostly playing with your band. There's not much chance to go grab somebody and go do three or four shows with, someone you like because everyone's trying to make a living at it. And um, but I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's interesting. It makes the music certainly. I mean, I love listening to duos play. I listen to any two people play and sing together. To me, that's almost the ultimate music experience because there's nowhere to hide there. It's just you two, and you're putting yourselves out and relating to each other. I love that vibe. Hello, I think I lost you. I lost you. Okay, we're back with Jesse Brock again. We lost him for a second, but we've got him back again. So, you were talking about, well, I don't know if you remember your train of thought, but I was going to ask you this question, which is, what role does Nashville play in the music world these days? Is it as important as it used to be, or is it essential? Um,
Well, when IBMA was in Nashville, um, we thought there was a lot of promise there with it being there and utilizing that power we could draw from in the country world and vice versa. And many times when the country world would present one of their artists doing a bluegrass album, it it would always be very beneficial to them and would shoot them right to the top of eligibility. But when bluegrass tried to draw from the country crowd, there didn't seem to be that support there. Um, it wasn't a mutual give and take, and I think that's what led the organization to go elsewhere, like to Raleigh, and now ultimately to Chattanooga. I think it's their goal to be like the Folk Alliance and keep moving every 3 to 5 years. So perhaps it'll return back to its roots in Owensboro, which was, I thought, the consensus for several years. Uh, I I just don't think Owensboro has built up its infrastructure enough to support having it return there. Uh, but to go back to your question, I think when you have an organization like uh, the CMA or country music, um, it needs to be um, beneficial to both sides and have the full support from each side, a mutual agreement, if you will.
I just was talking to Deanie Richardson recently on the podcast, and as you know, she's spent a lot of her career playing with country musicians,
Yep.
real country, but she has a very I don't know what the word is, not too positive um, thoughts about a lot of the way country music has headed and become, away from its country roots, away from its bluegrass roots, just kind of like a big commercial cash cow that they just keep churning out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, she played with Vince Gill and Patty Loveless and, and Bob Seger. She's kind of covered all the bases on her fiddle.
Yeah.
She was pretty outspoken about her distaste for the way modern country is gone. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but what are your feelings about country and bluegrass? I mean, they used to be very similar with similar roots, similar players, and then it all went apart, and now it seems like it's so apart. It's two worlds.
It is two worlds, unfortunately. Uh, I think uh, they've taken on a corporate mindset where they have record executives being replaced who've been in there for decades with people fresh out of college who don't have experience, but all they see are numbers. They also see a need to have fresh young faces in there. I think the Opry went through this for a while, uh, trying to push out the older people, bring in newer artists, and I think it's still that way to an extent, but I think they're really trying harder at the Opry. As far as country radio, mainstream radio, uh, I I'll have to agree with Deanie on that. That they're just wanting to produce cookie cutter artists that fit a certain image, and it's really not about the talent or the music they're putting out. It's about what sells to younger people. Sex sells easily to the market, and if you put a hot model up there holding a guitar, well, that's going to win out over someone with real talent, whether whether it's male or female. Um, so I think that's the difference. I certainly hope bluegrass doesn't become that way. I see hints of it here and there, but I just hope we stay true to our values, producing good acoustic music like Bill Monroe would want us to carry on. People are even ashamed to call it bluegrass. They just say acoustic, new age music or newgrass. But, Tony Rice said it best. Do not lose your sight on what got you there and the real roots of acoustic music, bluegrass. Uh, he even said, I myself moved to California and tried to take on a new face of music and learn from David Grisman, but I never forgot my roots of bluegrass music, the Jimmy Martin vein, and thank God for it. I hope we can just stay true to what what we stand for, what bluegrass music is.
Um, do you think music is political by nature? I'm thinking of certain artists who have made political statements in the country world. I know the bluegrass, the Southern community in general, it tends to be kind of a conservative politically, you know, through history. I think it's changing now. I know Nashville has changed a lot. I mean, if you go to now downtown Nashville, you see every kind of person you could ever imagine there, where 30 years ago it probably wasn't that way. I just wonder what your thoughts are about music and politics, or do you just prefer to keep them separate?
I do prefer to keep them separate. I
Yeah.
don't think uh, we should use uh, our profession as a soapbox for our political views, even though I see it happening a lot with not with just younger people, but people who think they have a voice and what they say matters and can sway people a certain way. I don't think as a performer and entertainer, that's our job. I think we need to keep that to in our personal life. I don't even in my personal life, I don't profess which side I'm on. I don't think it matters. Um, it does matter in the long run, but I'm a performer. I'm there to entertain and lift people up, not bring them down with my thoughts. And I think it's a scary realm, really, when you start spouting your views that don't agree with your fans. And we've seen it happen with bigger bigger acts in the music field where they lose a lot of fans and it's damaging. Uh, but I don't even think of it from that aspect. I just don't think it should come into play in what we do. We're there to lift you up and have you walk away happy and maybe walk away with some of our merch, our
Right.
brand. But
Exactly.
that's our job is when you go to a venue, you're there to be entertained and lifted up and not brought down.
Yeah. I mean, I think of music as, especially in these times, as one of the last places where that really is there to bring people together solely. That's the point of music is to bring people together to whatever, be entertained, forget about their troubles, be with other people, whatever your reason for listening to music is. It seems like it's one of the few places in life because we're so separated and now with our iPhones, we're in our own little worlds all the time. So
Yeah,
music is one of the few places, and you don't even go to the movies anymore. It's everybody's home. It's just
right.
music. Music is the only place really where maybe sports where people get out with other people and try to, be a community. Um, what's your thought about that? Do you agree?
I believe our devices are uh, the new addiction.
Mm,
Um, pe- People don't know how to detach themselves and be social anymore. I really think we need to bring that back into our lives and limit the usage. I'm guilty of it also. I'm not saying I'm above anybody, but we need to get back to the roots, back to life, and
yeah.
real music and what's entertaining, and put the phones down for a while and just interact with people.
What advice would you give to yourself, to a young Jesse Brock, knowing what you know now and where you've lived and where you've been through? Would you have any advice for your teenage self?
Sure, don't get into music.
That
No.
is an honest answer.
if I'd known uh, back in the beginning that it was going to turn out the way it did, I'd probably do the same thing. Maybe I didn't realize the hard work ahead, um, the ebb and flow of the business, how fickle it can be. If you're out of the limelight for 1 to 2 years, you're pretty much forgotten about, and just clawing your way back to being in the public eye and producing something that sells, that people like. That's the hard part. That's what Doyle Lawson told the boys. He said, as long as you work hard, you'll do fine. Once you start slacking off, expect the outcome. And he's right. It's been right my whole career too. My dad instilled in me good working values, good ethics, morals, and I've been a Christian my whole life, but I've kind of strayed once in a while, and that's what happens in this business. There's a lot of bad stuff around you, and you just got to stay focused on the path and successful. And as long as you do that, and you're a hard worker, God's going to provide for you.
This is a non-music question, and might be a hard question. What would people be surprised to learn about you, Jesse Brock? That's, I don't know, anything without giving away too many personal secrets. Anything about you that people would say, "Whoa, I had no idea."
That's a loaded question.
I know it is. That's why I asked it. It could be anything you want. I mean, I'm just trying to throw a little lightness into this. So,
well, people have to have hobbies and interests. I have quite a bit of interests that don't involve music. I'm in horology, which is the love of watches and clocks. I've had that since I was a child. Had no idea Tony Rice was into it to the level he was. Also thought it'd be neat to be a repairman of watches like Tony was. So I collect a lot of Accutrons and Swiss movement watches, pocket watches from the turn of the century. But that's just one of the things I like. I love railroads, anything with trains. It's typical boy stuff. I was into riding bikes when I was little. That's why I didn't like to practice, because I wanted to ride my bike and play video games. I like video games, but I found I have an addictive personality, and I got addicted to playing video games, which takes a lot of time away from life and the important things. But I like to drive. I like cars. Would love to have a vintage truck sometime, if I can get enough in my bank account to make that happen.
What's your truck going to be?
It'd be an old Chevy truck.
Old Chevy.
I had a 1954 Chevy that I learned stick shift in, and I had to sell it. Didn't want to, but I had to because I moved away, and would like to have something from the 30s to 50s Chevy. And my dad has owned many cars in his life, and so we share in that together. Would like to maybe get a 1955 to 57 Chevy Bel Air sometime.
Nice.
But I have away from music.
Yeah. I too have an addictive personality. I understand. It's hard to do anything halfway, and things like video games or drinking, all these things can suck you in big time if you're that kind of personality, and a lot of us have that. It's a challenge to stay on the right track. I agree.
But I've never had any real crutches, like a lot of musicians on the road do to vent or to escape. I never was into drugs or drinking or sex or anything like that. Those crutches really can rule your success or the lack thereof. And I think as long as you stay grounded, focused, you don't even have to have faith like I do. A lot of viewers or listeners may think that, well, he's just saying what makes things work for him. I don't think you should think the way I do. I'm just trying to come from an aspect of what has worked for me in my career, made me successful, and I want to give thanks and gratitude to God who has made it happen for me.
Yeah. So I think I know the answer to this question, but let's say you have a week off, which you never do, right? But let's say you had a week off. something happened, you have a week off. Where would we find you? You had a week off.
You would probably find me up in Bowling Green, Kentucky, working on the house there. My parents are living there, and been doing a lot of work up there on my time off, which is very little. I may have 2 days to be up there during a week. My primary residence is Franklin, Tennessee, and my wife and I live there. She works for the city of Franklin right now. And so I'm either there in Bowling Green or in Franklin, or I'm over here right now in Maryville, Tennessee, which is a small home that my wife owns and is a good work base for the band, because the band is based out of Knoxville, and it's south of Knoxville.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close off? You have the floor.
Well, I'd love to get back up to Connecticut and see you again in person, not over the phone. And,
I would love that too.
We hope to be up there with Authentic Unlimited soon. I've been hearing rumblings about Thomas Point Beach being there again. I also heard that they're going through a possible sale of the park. So
yeah, I heard that too.
I'm hoping that some interested parties will still keep it going. It's a very magical place there. I love all of New England, especially this time of year when everything's changing and that crisp feel in the air. I lived in Massachusetts for a while back in the 80s, and also lived in Maine. So I kind of miss this time of year up there, but would love to get back up there soon. If not to play, see you.
Just to say hello. Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, I've Guitar Town is kind of condensed down to smaller venues.
Okay.
We used to do a lot of big shows, and then my daughter went to college, and my wife basically said, "You're not going to risk your personal money on these big things." And I was in agreement with that. It's just a hobby for me, and
Sure.
I never made money at it. I was trying not to lose money, so.
Right.
We're doing smaller shows, so sometimes we'll get bands on the way through going to a festival, and that's the only way I could really do your band now. Maybe it's just it's the times are different. I'm retired. I'm 71. I can't be risking these big guarantees for bands anymore. But I
Right.
would certainly hope to see you at some point if you come up, even if you just pass through. We grab a cup of coffee together and shoot the breeze. Either way. Well, I really want to thank you, Jesse, for being on the podcast and opening up about your life and your music and your successes and frustrations. I think that's what people enjoy hearing. They don't really care what kind of pick you use or that kind of stuff. They want to know the person. So I think
Yes.
it's been nice for that. So I do appreciate it, and I wish you luck with all your pursuits, and hope to see you up here sometime, someday again.
Thank you. Yes, I gotta admit, it's one of the best interviews I've ever had, where I've really been candid and opened up about a lot of things that I've never talked about before. So thank you.
Well, thank you for doing it. It's been great talking with you, and I always appreciate you. So we'll catch you soon, I hope.
I hope so too.
Okay.
God bless.
Right. Thanks. Take care, Jess.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.